And now to our first conversation as Nigerians continue to grapple as the average consumer with soaring costs of living. The debate over government regulation of prices that has taken center stage once again. This follows a recent ruling by a federal high court in Abuja, which held that only the president, and only for a limited period, has the constitutional authority to regulate the prices of goods and services. Well, joining us to unpack this, we have Dr. Monday Siborgo, who's an expert in the matter. Joining me right here in the studio. It's great to have you. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Yeah, so, definitely when there's a cost of living crisis, I guess somebody tries to step in to protect the consumer, which we need, at this point, because the average consumer is going through a lot, in the country. Even, globally, we've had that inflation battle. Some countries are winning the battle, against inflation. Some are not, right now with prices staying elevated. So what do you make of this ruling, giving the president the power to, control prices for a specific period?
I think that power was given in consideration to curb the excesses of maybe corporations, both public and private, where there are cases of market monopoly, market manipulation, or where you have cases where it is in the interest of citizens, particularly for essential commodities, not for value-added services. Essential. Yes, it's essential commodities. What people cannot afford to do without. For example, there are three basic needs. We talk about shelter, you talk about clothing, and you talk about food. And paramount on that list today, is food. And so if government comes in to intervene to say if prices are pegged at XYZ, consideration is taken into factors surrounding that cost of production, the profit margin that could be allowed, and government would also compensate in terms of maybe providing subsidy or certain incentive in that area to allow, and it's just for a given period of time. I think this journey started in the early 70s, where the administration considered the turnaround maintenance of our refineries not meeting up with production capacity, and government had to step in to regulate. And then they created agencies where the power of the president was ceded to do or to carry on such functions. Where it is clearly absent, you see the federal court, high court ruled that it is only the president, and within a limited period of time. It's not going to be in perpetuity.
So what do you make of, this, the latest ruling?
Well, Nigeria runs a free market, right? Despite the fact that we regulate some form of activities in the free market to avoid manipulation, breaches in competitive markets, and also to ensure that best practices are maintained within each sector. So it's okay that the Federal High Court just clearly and explicitly defined that you cannot, irrespective of the regulation or the law that establishes any agency, cannot fix a price for another person when you are not involved from the production to the market process. You have no right to do that. You have right only to intervene in something that you have capacity over. And that's what the Federal High Court has maintained. In a free market, it means that people have right to obtain, they have the right to reject. So you cannot fix a price for me for a product you did not take part in the production, and you cannot peg a price for me when you are not certain and cannot prove that there's a market manipulation or monopolies involved.
Right, and when it comes to price, definitely we've seen situations where some news, we get some news maybe in the global space or within the country, and the next thing you're seeing the prices of those products, just skyrocket immediately. When there's good news, the prices don't come down as fast.
Of course. The essence of any business is to maximize profit. That's the truth.
Okay.
Yes, businesses are, the objective of any business is to make profit. But more than that is to maximize profit. So what you do is when the people take advantage of, let's say, market speculations, policy change, policy swings, and can swiftly peg their price there. And then because of the uncertainty that that policy may have a backlash, there's no need for you to, to backtrack. But we've seen cases in the oil and gas market where prices go by 10 naira, tomorrow is down by 15 naira, tomorrow is down by 10 naira, and another day is up by 20 naira. Yes, that shows that it is being determined by market forces. And global crisis, for example, the Ukrainian-Russian conflict also spiked up.
Yeah, we see how that impacted, food.
Yes. Right now, India, Pakistan too will spike up some also in terms of shipping and movement of goods and products within those waterways. So there are a lot of things that also trigger that. Crisis, riots, speculation of people moving, migration, even weather fluctuations can affect. Flooding can also affect prices. Oh, we're not expecting production.
So a lot of things.
Yes, a lot of things.
Impact prices.
But the thing is, that's why you have regulation. That's why you have agencies that are saddled with that responsibility. And what they are saddled with that responsibility to do is to establish beyond reasonable doubt that there's a market manipulation. Right. Or taking undue advantage of situations, and then they can whip you back to line.
So can these regulators, do they have jurisdiction when it comes to, private businesses?
Yes, yes, they do. They do.
Or are there some businesses that are exempted?
All businesses, no business is exempted. But what it must establish, it must be established beyond reasonable doubt that there's a clear case of manipulation, clear case of taking advantage of the situation, or clear case of profiteering or taking excessive...
But sometimes manipulation is not that clear, though.
Oh, well, it is. It is by those who are experts in it. Those who are in that agency have been well trained to tell you where there's a market manipulation.
And, when you have a market with just, a few players or just, one player, then, most of the time it's hard to say, okay, there's manipulation here or there. But what if it's a situation where the business environment is really bad? And, we've seen what happened, with the Naira, with weakness and all of that. And this business decides, okay, you know what, I'm taking up my prices. But the government, tries to step in and say, you know what, how about we negotiate? This one, they're not forcing the business. They're saying, you know what can we do to, bring that up? I guess that works too.
Yeah, if government is willing to provide incentive. But note, and as I said, government's responsibility is to necessities, not value-added services or luxuries, right? So if you are asking for government intervention in terms of transportation, right, it's understandable, but not government intervention because people want to buy cars and the cars are out of their reach. But if government is intervening, oh, we want to procure buses, and people who are in this business can't afford to buy these buses because transportation is a necessity, then government is intervening in that direction. It's understandable, right? So we must get the priorities right of where government intervenes or talks to a market operator to have consideration for price reduction. And they must also provide the incentive that should encourage that market operator to do so. So if that is clearly absent, then the basis of that discussion is uncalled for. Okay. And as I said, the priority of government is to deal with necessities, not luxury or value-added services.
Okay, so let's imagine for a value-added service now for a company that deals in that kind of business, and the prices are really high. Government says, you know what, I need you to drop these prices, and the business maybe agrees or disagrees. What would you say is the impact of that, going forward?
Well, there are definitely, even anytime a business increases its price, two things happen. They will either acquire a new set of customers and then lose some. In some cases, they lose a lot, but they will look at the markup to see whether the numbers that they have can sustain them as a business. So when this happens, these are likelihoods of things that will happen anytime these fluctuations happen. But for me, government telling somebody to peg a price is not appropriate. It's not right.
Do you think sometimes, or maybe most of the time, the reason why we're even having this conversation at all and why the business is even thinking of raising prices, do you think it would be the fault of the government?
Well, government is largely our biggest industry in Nigeria is the government. If you should know, the biggest industry is the government. So everything revolves strategically around the government. Forex, if you're dealing with a product that largely depends on buying your raw materials or content or whatever in foreign exchange, that is going to be determined by the Central Bank of Nigeria. And the banks would follow suit and make their markups. And then if you are not on the list that government considers as priority for Forex, you have to source elsewhere. So you'll be talking about Bureau de Change or companies that already have some currencies in their domiciliary accounts to assist you. And it will come at a cost. And if it comes at a cost, it means your price would also shoot up. So if, for example, you were providing a service, say, at 4,000 Naira, as at 2023, by now it should be about 25,000 Naira, given the way the dollar exchange rate and other...
And it's sad that,
Yes.
Incomes don't rise like that.
Well, that's the tragedy of the system, and that's the responsibility of those who are in charge of monetary and fiscal policy to see to it that the cost of living also goes alongside with that. So we've been over the debate of minimum wage and who should pay, who shouldn't pay. Normally, but as a country, you should define a minimum wage that every person, irrespective of the kind of business you do, that should be the minimum you should pay. But today they tell you, if you have employed 5 or 6 persons, you must have XYZ number of... So some persons are exempted from it. So there are people who are earning 20,000 a month. People are earning 30,000 a month. Some are earning 50,000 a month. The 70,000 is a far cry for many people. So the truth remains that if government takes into consideration that their monetary and fiscal policy is not giving the desired impact, they know what to tweak, they know what to adjust, they know what to do, or the stimulants they will put in place in the system that will encourage economic activities and generate more revenue that will encourage employers of labor to pay more. Right now, employers of labor are grappling to survive, and coupled with the fact that they are hit by different forms of levy and taxes here and there. As a small business, you pay up to about 14 to 15 different levies in a month.
So instead of, trying to either negotiate with a business to, bring down their prices or dictate to them, their prices, what do you think, a government should do instead? Because, we've come to a point where most governments are struggling with revenue at this time, so they can't even pay for some of these subsidies, anymore. So
no, I don't think it's a revenue problem. Governments will not say that. That's a lie. They made a lot of yield from the removal of subsidy. What they are battling with is the huge debt, which were not put in any productive activity. Taking debt to pay salaries, taking debt to meet up some lifestyle of governors and state governments. Today, they are drastically reducing those debts from the revenues they've made. So it's not about revenue. It's about the lifestyle, the pattern. Being accountable to economic activities. If you rake in so much money, you should deploy it to a lot of economic activities in the states, at the local levels, at state and national levels, that will generate more funds. And once you have a lot of economic activities coming in from there, there's every likelihood that there will be some form of stability. But at the moment, there's a lot of money that has come into the system, and it's servicing debts.
So it's not a revenue problem. I guess it's a spending?
Spending. We need to be prudent. That's one. Because if we're talking about revenue, we had this clamor. But what is the debt ratio today to our revenue? It's close to about 80% to what you're making. So 80% is going off as debt.
Right, yeah.
So the states at the national, they're all grappling with around 19 to 20% to run the system. So you would find some form of stagnation here and there.
Right, and definitely the debt accumulation didn't start today. It started many years ago.
No, we're not saying it started today.
Right.
It's a product of
Past
over
actions,
the years,
right.
and then we've not been very conscious about it. There was a time we made every effort to do that. And that was what led to the emergence of the Debt Management Office. Well, I don't know what they do right now.
All right, definitely so much to unpack, and we were hoping, that the average consumer in Nigeria gets a break, at some point, and hopefully the government and private sector can have some kind of handshake, and we don't have to dictate prices, going forward. Let the forces determine that.
All right.
Thank you so much. It was great having you today. That was Dr. Monday Asibogu, is a media expert and joining us today to unpack all of this price matters. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll analyze regulation in Nigeria's capital market as the Securities and Exchange Commission gets ready for the Capital Market Committee meeting. That's a moment to stay with us.